So what if you could predict a huge swing in the gold market, down to the exact day, the exact dollar, all by using astrology and some ancient math? It sounds pretty wild, right? Well, today we're going to deconstruct a fascinating financial blueprint that claims to do just that. Now, our goal here isn't to say if it's right or wrong, but to really understand how such a compelling and frankly convincing story gets built from the ground up. Right off the bat, you can tell this strategy doesn't start with charts and spreadsheets. It starts with this powerful, almost spiritual claim. It calls a market event a cosmic coil. You see what it's doing? It's transforming a financial trade into this moment of destiny. This isn't just about making a quick buck. It's about being one of the enlightened, one of the few who gets what's really going on. Okay, so first things first, let's look at the core prediction itself. The real power of this strategy isn't just in the crazy specific numbers, but in how it takes something that everyone else would call a market crash and completely reframes it. It's not an accident, it's a pre-planned cosmic event. And here it is, the big one. A mind-blowing $1,200 rally in gold, screaming from a low of $4,600 to a peak of $5,800. And get this, it's not supposed to happen over a year or two. No, this is all supposed to go down in the single month of February 2026. It's that kind of insane specificity that really makes you stop and listen. This right here is the key shift in perspective. Where you or I, or any typical trader, would see a market crash and panic, this strategy sees a beautifully engineered event. That drop to 4,600 isn't a disaster at all. It's the cosmic coil being wound up tight, just storing all this kinetic energy before it absolutely explodes. So, you're probably asking, how on earth do they justify a prediction like that? Well, the whole strategy is built on three main pillars. Let's start with the first one, which is definitely the most unconventional of the bunch, the astrological engine. At the very heart of this thing is an astrological event called Maha-Samasaptaka yoga, and it's framed as a literal planetary war. Think about it. On one side, you've got Mars, the planet of aggression, and on the other, you've got Jupiter, the planet of wealth. The theory is that this cosmic showdown is the direct trigger for the coming hyperinflation in commodities. Okay, so let's break that down a bit. You have Mars, who they call the commander, and Jupiter, the treasurer, and both are in their most powerful positions in the sky. Their direct face-off is what supposedly ignites a fire hose of liquidity into the market. But the final trigger, the real catalyst, happens on February 13th. That's when the sun aligns with Rahu, which is an eclipse point in Vedic astrology. This creates a shock of eclipse energy, which they claim is designed to trigger a major run on the US dollar. So with that cosmic why all set up, the strategy moves to its second pillar. This is the mathematical proof. This part isn't just about justifying the event itself, but about justifying that very specific price target of $5,800. The math is all based on this Vedic sutra called Paravartya Yojayet, which basically just means transpose and adjust. In this system, it's treated like a fundamental law of nature for the markets, For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. The market is always seeking balance. So let's just walk through the calculation. It's actually pretty straightforward. Step 1. A fair value, or a mean price for gold, is set at $5,200. Step 2. That big drop to $4,600 is seen as a deviation of 600 points below that mean. Step 3. Applying that transpose and adjust rule, the market has to restore balance, so it recoils an equal 600 points above the mean. And that brings us to the final target. 5,200 plus 600 equals, exactly, 5,800. And to just really hammer the logic home, there's one final numerological layer. Check this out. If you take the price target, 5,800, and you reduce it to a single digit, so 5 plus 8 is 13, and then 1 plus 3 is 4, you get the number 4. Well, in Vedic astrology, the number 4 is ruled by, you guessed it, Rahu. This creates this perfect self-reinforcing loop, connecting the final price right back to the original astrological catalyst. All right, so the third and final pillar is where this whole thing tries to ground itself back in the world of conventional market analysis. This is the technical confirmation, and it's meant to show that standard, everyday chart patterns line up perfectly with all the esoteric predictions we just talked about. So that dip to 4,600, it's identified as a classic Wyckoff spring. Now, this is a real technical pattern that traders look for. It's where the price intentionally drops below a support level. Why? To trigger all the stop-loss orders and shake out the nervous sellers right before a massive reversal to the upside. So the crash is reframed again, but this time it's a calculated maneuver by so-called smart money. So we've got the three pillars in place: astrology, math, and technicals. How does it all come together? Well, this final section presents the master timeline. This is where everything gets synthesized into a precise, step-by-step, actionable trading plan. And just look at the precision here. We're not talking early February. We're talking down to the second. The entry, the Vajrabottom, is timed to 14:33:12 on February 2nd. The big acceleration phase is tied directly to that Rahu explosion on the 13th, and the exit is scheduled for a specific time on the 27th. This level of detail isn't just for planning, it's designed to create this overwhelming feeling of certainty, of having insider knowledge. Okay, so now that we've seen all the components, what's the real takeaway here? The insight, I think, is to see this whole system not just as a financial prediction, but as a masterclass in building a narrative. It is, quite literally, certainty by design. Which brings us to the central question, right? Are we looking at some kind of legitimate new form of financial analysis? Or is this something closer to a modern prophecy, just cleverly dressed up in the language of markets and esoteric wisdom? Ultimately, what the Celestial Alpha strategy shows us is how these incredibly different worlds, cosmology, ancient math, and modern markets, can all be woven together into one powerful story. It takes complex, chaotic systems and fuses them into a single narrative that replaces financial anxiety with this feeling of absolute conviction. And, in a world that is so full of uncertainty, maybe the most valuable thing being sold here isn't gold. It's the feeling of knowing exactly what's going to happen next.